Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. Thanks for watching on this Monday on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter. GM meetings in Florida. Members of the media had a chance to catch up with Montreal Canadiens General Manager Kent Hughes. He was asked about the team's performance since trade deadline. The Canadiens have played 7 games since then. Kirby Dach injured again in last night's game on a hit by Jeffrey Viel. He talked about Kirby Dach's injury situation as well. He was asked about the 3 goalies. We'll discuss the way they lost. We'll talk about a possibility of a recall from Laval. 0 for 7 on the power play, the Canadiens this weekend. Does that open the door for a player that we thought may have played his last game with the Montreal Canadiens? One defenseman in particular is probably struggling more than others. We'll tackle all of this. It's crunch time, and the Canadiens are holding on to a playoff spot. Can they hold on for good? Couple of big games coming up. Tomorrow night, they host the Boston Bruins. Thursday night, they visit the Detroit Red Wings. We discuss it all. Coming up in 3 short minutes. I'm Marinaro.
It's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K, S-I-C-K,
S-I-C-K,
S-I-C-K, S-I-C-K, S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs!
He found the Ducks!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. In all transparency, this podcast was recorded a little bit earlier in the evening. So a couple of very important games on the NHL schedule tonight, which by the time you're watching, were probably final. So we're not going to be talking about them, but two games that obviously interested the Montreal Canadiens a lot, maybe more than the others. Detroit hosted Calgary, and the Boston Bruins visited the Devils in New Jersey. And once again, these two teams are going to be facing the Canadiens this week. The Bruins travel to Montreal after the game. The Canadiens will host them tomorrow night, and the Canadiens will travel to Detroit, of course, where they visit the Detroit Red Wings. They'll travel to Detroit on Wednesday, where they visit the Red Wings on Thursday night. So once again, pre-recorded just before those games were actually over. So we are not exactly live. Thanks for watching, everyone, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, a leading asset-light 3PL that's driven to be different. From cross-border freight between Canada, USA, and Mexico to coast-to-coast shipping in both Canada and the United States. Energy moves it all. They're fast, reliable, and powered by tech that delivers smarter logistics. If you need a real partner in transportation, contact the team at sick@shipenergy.com and see how Energy Transportation Group is changing the freight game. Also, a shout out to Playground. It's hockey night at Playground, as if watching hockey wasn't thrilling enough. Now, every goal means more action on the felt. Before the puck drops, every poker table is randomly assigned the player for the Montreal team. And when your player scores, boom, Playground splashes the next pot with up to $200 in chips. Catch every game on Playground's big screens all around the room, so you'll never miss a goal, a play, or a splash pot. Visit playground.ca/sickpodcast or click the link in the YouTube description to spin a virtual wheel for a chance to win up to $100 in free play. Also, shout out to the Geloso Beverage Group and Bittt Tibi. You see the fridge behind me for big games. You want the best beers on your team, whether it's Bittt Tibi IPA with its bold flavor, Bittt Tibi Lager with its exceptional smoothness, or Bittt Tibi Ultra Lager, which is ultra light and ultra refreshing. They always have a place on your team. Bittt Tibi, brewed for special occasions. Drink responsibly, please. Without further ado, we're talking Montreal Canadiens hockey. And once again, going into tonight's games, for Detroit and for Boston, the Canadiens were third in the Atlantic, 2 points up on the Bruins, and the Red Wings had played the same amount of games as the Bruins, one game in hand on the Red Wings, but the Canadiens lost two very important games on the weekend. And I've been saying all day, and I'm going to say it again, probably, you know what, I don't want to be redundant, but man, I don't remember when was the last time the Canadiens lost two games back-to-back on home ice versus two Western Conference teams that hurt as much as these ones hurt on the weekend, because the Canadiens could have given themselves a little bit of breathing room between them and Boston and Detroit, and as it stands, it's becoming suffocating. There's very little breathing room. There's a common trend. The Canadiens don't defend very well. That's been going on since October, November, December, January, February, March. You try and limit it, but it's really starting to hurt the Montreal Canadiens now down the stretch with about 4 weeks left in the regular season. I discuss this and so much more with Nicolas Cloutier of TVA Sport. Nick, how are you, my man?
I'm doing great, Tony. What about you?
I'm doing extremely well. Two losses that hurt. What do you take out of what you saw this weekend?
Well, it's not the fact that they lost. It's the way they lost those games, and the fact that the defense is becoming a systemic issue. Let me tell you what, Tony. There's a common trend in the playoffs in the NHL is that if you can defend, you're not going to go deep. You're not going to make a run, especially if you're a very bad team on the PK. Teams that are bad on the PK, they don't go far in the playoffs too. Teams that can play those very tight 2-1 games, 1-1 games, they don't go very far in the playoffs because you have to play different styles in the playoff. You have to play different games. Sometimes in the playoffs comes a time where the other team, the team that you're facing, is not taking any risk and is not making any mistakes. So you've got to adapt to that type of game. You got to be able to play both games if you're a contender. If you want to play run and gun and trade scoring chances, the Habs can do that, but the Habs haven't showed that they can win games by the score of 2-1. And that's a concerning trend, Tony, even for the youngest team at the NHL, because that's been a trend for what, like 3 years now?
It really has. I'm trying to think back. You know, you mentioned a team that didn't have a good penalty kill. The last team that didn't have a good penalty kill that actually won a Stanley Cup. I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The Penguins in 1991, 1992 had the 8th worst penalty kill in the National Hockey League. They had the 8th worst penalty kill in the National Hockey League. And when they won it in 1990-91, they had they had the 6th worst penalty kill. So
yeah, but they had Mario Lemieux.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
But so you know what? You're right. For the most part, there's a trend. If you're in the bottom 10 in terms of penalty kill in the National Hockey League, you're not going to go very far in the playoffs.
Exactly.
There's another trend. If you're 8th last in the National Hockey League or 8th worst for goals against, you don't go far in the playoffs either. So now the big question, Nick, is if you're not very good on the penalty kill and you're not very good in terms of goals against. So the Canadiens, once again, are 8th worst in the National Hockey League for goals against.
Worse than last year, I think.
And on the penalty kill, the Canadiens are 6th worst. My question to you is that so bad so that the Canadiens end up missing out on the playoffs? Because it's getting tight, Nick.
Yeah. Columbus is what, 3 points away?
Yeah.
I do think the Habs still make the playoffs. And one thing I'm going to say, Tony, they've lost a couple of games in a row this season, but never did they lose 3 games in a row. Like they've shown the ability to bounce back this season. I'll give them that. Like anytime like during rough stretch where people get alarmed, they've bounced back and they prove they can bounce back. So that's reassuring, but they do gotta pick it up pretty quick because as you mentioned, teams are pushing behind, and the teams that Habs are trying to catch up, well, they've improved at the deadline. So Habs are one of the few teams that haven't done anything. Well, they did get Dano earlier in the season, so you could say they've done something, but they haven't done anything on the back end to address the systemic issues we've talked about. So namely the PK, we didn't even mention clearing the front of the net, the physical play. So yeah, it's going to be a tight race. I do think they still make it, but even if they do make it, what's the difference? Like if they get beaten in 4 or 5 games in the first round, that's not an upgrade. That's not like you want to see this team make steps. They've made steps offensively. They're now elite offensively. Like any opposing lead is not safe for the other team. So yeah. I'll give him that. But defensively, they've not taken any steps. I mean, they've taken a step backwards because their PK is so bad compared to last year where it was good. So that's concerning.
Nick, I said 10 days ago on trade deadline day is, look, I don't blame the Canadiens for not making a home run move because you know what? Yeah. It's not easy to make a home run move on trade deadline. And we've heard general managers tell us before that the big trades are made in the offseason. The Canadiens made a big trade in the offseason, as a matter of fact. Well, they acquired Bolduc, but the bigger one obviously was acquiring Noah Dobson from the New York Islanders. So I don't blame them for that. I would have gone out and I would have got myself an insurance policy, try and get a defenseman who plays a good 15 minutes per game, good 5v5, good on the penalty kill, a big right-handed defenseman. I talked about Connor Murphy. He was acquired probably 4 days before the deadline by the Edmonton Oilers. I think he would have been perfect for the Canadiens. Unfortunately, that one there slipped. And then on trade deadline day, I talked about Trevor Van Riemsdyk, who ultimately was not moved, among others. And Pierre Maguire, very outspoken about it too, thought the Montreal Canadiens really needed a right-handed defenseman that can play anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes per game, big, rugged. We know that those guys don't grow on trees, obviously. Kent Hughes was asked earlier today at the GM meetings in Florida if he regretted not making a move, and he said that he did not. Your thoughts?
Okay, so twofold. First, I know they at least kicked tires on Murphy. That's been confirmed to me by by someone close to the player. So they did.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't know if they were comfortable with the idea of renting a player. I don't know if they're in that at that point yet in the rebuild. So maybe they would have been comfortable with the idea of paying what a third round pick or a fourth round pick for Murphy, but perhaps not a second like the Edmonton Oilers paid for Murphy. So that's one thing. Second thing is they did make a trade. It just did not get through. So it's hard to complain about it since they did try to go to get something done. But you know what? Like we've all been to Cégep before, and you procrastinate and you send your work. You don't send work on time, and you get a bad grade for it. That's what happens. That's part of the
Mhm.
game. So you could also say that like you had all day to make a trade, so and you didn't make it happen. So that's the other way of looking at it. But still, you can't really say that Hughes sat on his hands because I mean he did make a trade for Deneau earlier during the season.
Mhm.
So and when you make a trade earlier in the season, it's even better because well the player has time to build chemistry with his teammates. So it's even better than
Yes.
making a trade at the deadline.
He made a
And he
trade for
did.
Texier too, but I think when we're
Yeah,
talking about
you
the
acquired
defensive,
Texier.
I think when we're talking about the defensive zone coverage, Nick, once again, let's be fair. It's been an issue the entire season. We've seen, especially in the last month to 2 months, that the sixth defenseman does not get a lot of ice time. We've seen that Caden Guhle has struggled when paired with Mike Matheson and struggled also when paired with Lane Hudson. And when he's paired with Lane Hudson, Lane has to end up playing the right side.
You could say he has struggled too, just struggle.
Correct. So
Yeah.
we know that they needed a right-handed defenseman, and I think that is, and also we know that the Buffalo Sabres obviously reinforced themselves the day before the trade deadline. So I think it's a little bit of a downer that they weren't able to make a move. Once again,
Yeah.
I'm not expecting the home run. They have been very active in the last 8-9 months. There's no doubt about it. They made a lot of moves to make their team better. Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't go out and expect to make 5, 6, 7, 8 moves. But so they did a good job. But they needed a right-handed defenseman, Nick. I mean, it's. I think the game doesn't lie. I think the videos don't lie. I think the stats don't lie. They needed that, and I think it's going to hurt them to the point where they're going to miss the playoffs. I don't know. I'm still optimistic, but I'll tell you this: it's not complicated, right? I don't know if we can bring up the schedule, but there's a couple of games versus Columbus, both in Montreal. There's a game versus Detroit. There's a game versus Tampa. There's a game versus the Bruins. These are the games. They need to pick up points.
Totally agree. But I just want to bounce back on what you said about the RHD, Tony, because you said they needed to get that defenseman. Well, they could have done two things. They had two options available to them. They could have tried to trade for a Pareko type of player, but then you would have to send back Reinbacher in that kind of deal because well, Buffalo had Vertica on the table, right?
Yes.
The other thing you could have done is you go for a player, an RHD with only 1 year remaining on his deal so that you do not hamper the development and eventual arrival of David Reinbacher. So you have to do one thing. So you either trade Reinbacher for RHD that's going to be on your team for a few years, at least 4 or 5 years, or you trade for an RHD with little terms so that you do not block out Reinbacher. So those were the two options available to them. So that really limits your options to be fair. So it's either a guy like Pareko or Ristolainen, like players that type. So if it did not materialize, if they did not get their price, that's where I can understand why they did not do anything.
Let's talk about David Reinbacher. You had a couple of terrific pieces last week on the TVA Sport website, and you talked about the Canadiens calling up Jacob Fowler and said that there was, if they wanted to recall David Reinbacher, they could actually do it as of today.
Yeah.
And they did not. That doesn't mean that they're not, by the way, because once again, they could recall him tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in the morning. Their press releases usually go out at 10 a.m. or 5 p.m. They could recall him tomorrow morning. And by recalling him tomorrow instead of today, they save a day's worth on the cap, correct? You can better explain that to us.
Of course. So Laval practiced today. They had an off day yesterday. They're back from their road trip right now. And they're playing a home game on Wednesday. So the players in Laval, they're already here. Like they're in the neighborhood right now. So it would be really easy for you to call Reinbacher and tell him, you know what, come to town, be ready. I think he's already in town. I think he lives near Bell Center. So be ready. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna call you tomorrow. Call you back from Laval,
Mhm.
and so be at the morning skate. That could be easily done. I'm not saying they're gonna do it,
Yeah.
but if the Canadians do want to recall Reinbacher for the game tomorrow against the Bruins, like they might as well do it. Like they can do it. They have the ability to do it, and by doing so and not recalling him today, as in Monday, they do save space on the cap because the cap is calculated for a player cap it in roster days. So roster days. So it would make a ton of sense if they wanted him to play against the Bruins to only recall him tomorrow morning.
All right. Do you think they should?
You know what? I would love to give you a yes or no answer. And if I have a hot take, like I don't shy away from it. There's one thing, like Reinbacher can help this team tomorrow. Like they can help this, he can help this team win games. Is that the best thing for his development? Because then he comes in and he's supposed to be the savior of all the Habs defensive miscues. I don't know if it's the right fit for him. I don't know if it's the right time. Like, you know as well as me, Tony, how much noise was around Reinbacher since he got drafted by the Habs. So
I hear you, but I want to
yeah.
answer your question by asking you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it the best thing for Jacob Fowler's development to be playing National Hockey League games right now instead of playing American Hockey League games?
The story is not the same. Reinbacher, from the day he was picked, there was so much noise around him.
I understand that.
And I don't think Fowler's a unicorn in terms of handling that noise. That's the thing, right?
Now, you're saying that, let's just say they recall Reinbacher and he doesn't play to expectations, and unfortunately it's not good.
Yeah.
That it could be a serious setback. It could affect him and his
Yeah.
development the rest of the way. You're thinking that he can get burned by it.
Yeah, and Tony, let me tell you another thing.
Yeah.
Where does he play most minutes right now? Engstrom is injured in Laval.
Yeah.
Right now he's playing like 28 minutes a game. That's golden development. He's not gonna get that in Montreal. Like, it's not even close.
But I'd be willing to bet that before the season started, they said at one point we got to give this kid a taste of pro hockey, and he's got to play with the big team. Here
Maybe
we
only
are
clinch.
in the middle of March. It hasn't happened yet. You're thinking, so if they clinch, there's a game or two left in the season.
Yeah.
They sit somebody out. That's a game that he could play.
But the more days that go by, I'm starting to side with you, Tony, because the other thing is, if you do give them the opportunity to show his game during meaningful games for the Canadians, that gives you much more clarity entering the offseason, right?
I don't know if they would really want to chance it now, though, to bring in, and I know they brought in a young goalie, but to bring in a young defenseman versus the Bruins or versus the Red Wings, and especially when you're lacking some physicality on the back end, which would probably mean taking a Jack Eye out of the lineup to put a Reinbacher, or not playing a Struble, put a Reinbacher, because obviously Jack Eye and Reinbacher take turns at who's in and who's out. Ooh, that'd be a pretty courageous decision. But speaking of which, I mean, they've accustomed us to taking pretty courageous decisions, right? It was a courageous decision to bring up Jacob Fowler in the first stint, to give him 10 games, and then to call him back now and to give him that game in Ottawa versus the Senators, and give him the game versus the Ducks last night. So.
You made a great point, though, about physicality. As much as I do love Reinbacher's game, he's not physically mature yet. And if you want physicality on the blue line, Reinbacher is not the guy that's going to give you that right now.
One guy that should be giving it to you is Caden Guhle.
Yeah.
On the game-winning goal against last night by Cutter Gauthier, there's a lot of players who I think when they go back and look at the tape, they're not going to be happy with what they're going to see.
Yeah.
Caden Guhle gets his pocket picked. It's a question of will. It's a question of desire. It's a question of aggressiveness. It's a question of who wanted it more. Jeffrey Viel wanted it more than Guhle. Strips some of the puck. Guhle ends up on the ice. And Lane Hudson, who at one point was, a couple of feet in front of his goalie, decides to, you know what? I'm going to go give him a hand. I'm going to try and help him out here. and makes his way there and then lets Cutter Gauthier slip behind them and forgets about him. Cole Caulfield is kind of stuck in no man's land. Who do I got here? I got him. I got nobody. Where am I going? And the Canadiens get scored on. Some will say that Jacob Fowler could have done better on the game-winning goal, beat him between the legs. Yeah, maybe they're right. I think he's the last guy to blame. I'm not telling you that he shouldn't have stopped it. He's the last guy to blame. It's like, I look at it, it's like blaming Jordan Binnington for Canada losing the gold medal versus the States. I mean, McDavid makes the first mistake of trying to go 1-on-3. Makar makes the second mistake for trying to keep it in at the blue line instead of playing safer and retreating back. And McKinnon makes the third mistake of getting bumped off the puck and losing the battle to Zach Werenski. So now if you're going to tell me, could Jordan Binnington, should he have made that save? Yeah, maybe. It beat him 5-0. I get it. But I think he's the last one that we should look at. And I think that Fowler's maybe the last Canadian we should look at also last night. What's going on with Guhle? When he was drafted in the first round, 16th overall, out of the Western Hockey League, there was a lot of expectations. Big-time leader. People at Team Canada and the junior program knew him well. So this guy's a real one. He could be a shutdown pairing defenseman for a good 15 years in the National Hockey League. And when he's at his best, he is. But when he's not, you say to yourself, okay, he needs to play third pairing and he needs to have his minutes limited and he needs to play third pairing because he needs to go up against third and fourth liners. It was a tough weekend for a lot of players on the weekend. But I think you have some stats that show us that it's just difficult for Guhle this season, period.
Since he's been back, he hasn't found his groove yet. I think of all the Habs D-men this season, Kaiden Guhle is the one that has given the greater amount of expected goals against per 60 minutes. If we can show up the chart, yeah, right here. So, and that's not typical for Guhle. Like in that metric, he was doing much better last season. He's supposed to be one of your best in zone defensemen. He's one of your best defensemen when you're talking about clearing the net. And what worries me too, Tony, is how he fell over on that goal you alluded to earlier. Like, Guhle is a strong man, but he keeps experiencing those balance issues. Like, oftentimes in a game, if you look at him and he gets into these awkward positions, that worries me. His posture has been something that has been looked at. I think he tried to correct it. I tried to make adjustments, but we do see that odd, awkward fall at times during games, and he puts himself, just like Kirby Dach does a bit, in vulnerable positions during hockey games. Like even in his return, I think, like a couple of games after his return, like he almost got injured. I don't know if you remember the play, but
yes, yeah, he left the ice and then he went to the locker room and he came back.
Exactly. It's worrisome because you can't, at this point, you cannot have the benefit of the doubt of saying it's luck, because you do put yourself in those positions. But the thing is,
Dach is the same at the forward position. Kaiden
exactly.
Guhle resembles Kirby Dach, and Kirby Dach resembles Kaiden Guhle in terms of they're reckless and they put themselves in positions where they get hit and get hit often and get hurt. Another guy who puts himself in a position to get hit a lot, by the way, is Carrier. But I think he's pretty lucky with his health. He doesn't really get hurt, but the other guys get hurt.
That's a miracle, though. But just going back on Guhle, what urges the Canadiens is that they need defensemen like Kaiden Guhle. They don't need less Guhle. They need more Guhles. If you look at the top four, the only D-man that could have the tag of a physical stay-at-home-ish D-man is Kaiden Guhle. So he's essential to the Habs, but the only thing is he's a live shot. So whoever's going to play with him is not going to be playing on the strong side. That's an issue. And the other issue is he's often putting himself in positions where he could be injured. And the third issue is Kaiden Guhle just hasn't been Kaiden Guhle this season. So we've got a problem in our hands, because Kaiden Guhle, if you don't get him going, I don't see how that defense is solved, because he's essential to that. Like, he's a pillar to that.
All right. Okay. So now, in terms of Guhle, are you putting him on the third pairing?
Not yet.
No?
He's too important, Tony. Like they don't trust their 6D man. So
I know.
I don't know.
I know.
I don't know
I
how you
know.
do that, honestly.
And that's why I think the right-handed defenseman would have helped, because if you would have
Of
got
course.
a right-handed defenseman that plays 15 minutes a game, maybe that right-handed defenseman becomes a defense partner for Laine Hudson. You put Laine back on his natural left. You put him with that right-pairing defenseman. Matheson's a left. You put him with Noah Dobson, who's a right, and then you put Caden Guhle, of course, on your third pairing left D, and you pair him with either Jack-Eye or Struble. Having said that, once again, we can't live in the past. What's done is done. It's not done, but I would consider going back to Laine Hudson back at left D. You know what? Giving Carey the responsibility for 1 or 2 games, and I understand it's the 2 biggest games coming up. I get it. To either play with Hudson or to play with Matheson. He asked Carey who he thinks he's probably more comfortable with. Do I think they're going to do it? No. But I think obviously something has to change on the blue line. The coach, I would imagine, will tell you that what has to change is gauging the risk. And, one of the things I find that they do as well is that they leave their position, and sometimes they leave the defensive zone, whether it's one defenseman leaves the defensive zone before the other defenseman gets it out, or it's a forward who should stay, or a forward who should stay in the defensive zone to pick up a pass that actually leaves the zone. This has been going on for a while. They got to change this, man.
Yeah. And we've talked about the defense a lot, Tony. Like the gap control. The gap control and all the space the D-man gave to the opposing forwards. The thing is, if you're a D-man and you don't see back pressure, you don't see your forwards coming back, well, you have no choice but to be sagging. Like you cannot take like the puck carrier head on if there's no back pressure from the forwards. So like it's fine. Like and I'm the first one to say that the defense, the Habs D-men have not been playing well. Have been playing subpar. But we also have to talk about the forwards. And the forwards, mind you, they've made a lot of mistakes that created odd man rush the other way. And like you said, like it's the same principle as Binnington making the last mistake. Well, it's pretty much the same with the D-men, because the D-men are inheriting problems that are given to them by the forwards messing it up the other way. They create these odd man rush. Like they're the ones that are messing up, that are making the first mistake. And then there's all this space in the middle of the ice, and the D-men have to deal with it. So the forwards have to come back stronger on the play, have to support the D-men for it to work.
Yeah. Okay. So now, in terms of injuries, we're talking about Guhle's history, and since he came back from the injury, Kirby Dach got injured again last night. And we have a picture here. We can show it. The contact, the hit from Viel on Kirby Dach. There you have it. Kent Hughes was asked about Kirby Dach and his injury earlier today at the GM meetings in Florida. Let's hear from the Montreal Canadiens general manager.
C'est sûr, c'est frustrant, spécialement pour Kirby, mais pour tout le monde. Quand il y a de la malchance au niveau des blessures, c'est sûr qu'il a vécu avec nous, puis avant nous. Je suis pas conscient encore. J'ai pas vu mes achats. J'étais encore en avion quand c'est arrivé. Je peux pas te dire si c'est long terme ou court terme, mais j'avais l'impression que c'était long terme.
All right. Sorry, and there was a little bit of background noise, but it is what it is. And he said, look, I didn't have a chance to see the hit because I was flying when it happened, so I didn't have a chance to see the replay. I can't tell you if it's long-term or short-term. I'm under the impression that it's not long-term, he says. So
He also says one other thing, Tony.
Yeah.
He alludes to bad luck.
Yes.
And I don't think he has a choice, because Kirby Dach's still an asset for the Montreal Canadiens. So he cannot be telling all the GMs that are in Florida right now, hey, this guy will often get injured, and he's the one responsible for it.
There's only one problem. There's only one problem. Let's bring up his hockey DB. So general managers have this tool the way we all do. It's Hockey DB. It's a hockey database. And they'll look at Kirby Dach and they'll say, hold on a second. Even going back to junior hockey And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 7th season in the National Hockey League. Why has Kirby Dach never played a full season? Ever.
That's not bad luck at this point. I'm sorry.
That's a recurring theme at this point. And staying healthy is a quality.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Dach, and look, it's a quality he doesn't have.
And it sucks for him. Like, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, it sucks. He probably feels it's unfair. But when you're a GM or an opposing team GM and you look at Kirby Dach, well, you come to the same conclusion as we're coming right now. Like, right, you cannot unsee it. So King Hughes, of course, he addresses the media and he says, "Yeah, it's bad luck." Well, he has to, because you know what, we've talked about his qualifying offer being at $4 million, right, Tony?
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm like,
yeah, Nick, just a little bit of clarity for those who are listening, those watching.
Yes.
His salary is $3.362 million.
Yeah.
And so to qualify him,
and retain his rights as an RFA,
his rights as an RFA, you're close to $4 million.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I think it's 10%.
Yeah. So you have to give him $4 million. That's his qualifying offer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There you have it.
If you do not qualify him, so if you do not give him his $4 million qualifying offer, he becomes unrestricted free agent, so he can walk for nothing. But the thing is, we've talked about the possibility of not qualifying him, then signing him on your own terms, because he might take the hometown discount because he likes Montreal. Well, the other thing is, there's always a team, Tony, that will look at a right shot centerman and say, with his size, and say, we might just, like, the cap has gone up, like, we might just throw $4 million at Kirby Dach for what? For heck, like 2 years, like, who cares? There might be another team that is willing to do that. So I was thinking about this, Tony, and I was thinking, you know how Kent Hughes is in regards to asset management. I don't see Kent Hughes putting himself in a situation where he might lose Kirby Dach for nothing. So what I'm saying here is,
I don't think so either. They're playing the stock market, Gordon and Hughes. And you know what? They're not giving away an asset that they paid a price for at a loss. That's not the way they do business. That's why they're so good. That's why they're so good at what they do.
Which is why I think they might try to trade him before he even goes to that deadline for qualifying offers, right?
Yeah.
Before you have to take this really, really tough decision about qualifying him or not, and risking losing an asset over nothing. Well, before it even comes to that would be Kent Hughes to cracher to just trade him before, to get himself out of that problem and to maximize his asset before potentially losing it, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right about that. So now, Doc, have they tried everything in your opinion? Because his time here, once again, it's his 4th year of a 4-year contract. And yes, he is RFA at the end of the year. Qualifying offers at $4 million. You and I agree that they're not going to lose him for nothing. At least I don't think they will. But is there something they haven't tried? They tried him at center on the second line. They tried him on center on the third. They tried him at center on the fourth. They tried him on the wing. They tried him on the wing with Suzuki and Caulfield. Is there something
they know what they have
tried?
in Kirby Dach? They know what they have in Kirby Dach. The one thing I will say, injury aside, I did not mind his play this year, especially on the wing when he came. Kirby Dach, when he plays with some FU in his game and he keeps it simple, he's a good player for the Canadiens. Is he a superstar?
Yes, but how many times have we heard that about players? Like, if he plays with some FU in his game, but it's a big if, because they don't. And they do it 1 in every 4. And that's why when those players, their career will always be substandard, with all due respect, of course, I say it, they will never play to their max of their potential. And I say this all the time. I think it's a comparison that's good, right? Benoit Pouliot went 4th in the draft, right? If he was going to be available at 5th, the Canadiens were going to take him instead of Carey Price, right? Everyone thought he had the tools. Pierre-Luc Dubois went 3rd in the draft. Everyone thought that he was going to end up, respectfully to Pierre-Luc, have a better career than he's had, okay? Because if he would play to his potential, he wouldn't have been moved the amount of times that he's been moved. But in the end, Pouliot's career was what it was. Dubois' career is what it is. And Dach's career so far is what it is and will be what it is because, it's once again, when he plays, if he does this, and it's not all the time.
He does not do it consistently. I'd be shitting you if I was telling you the opposite, Tony.
Yeah, and that's why those players are available, and that's why players like that are going to continue to be available going forward. Like, I don't think the Canadiens are going to be his last team. I don't see it going that way.
No, I don't think so. But you know what? I'm going to say it again. Big right shot centerman. Tell me there's no team that will look at Kirby Dach. I don't see it.
They will.
There's a team out there that will look at Kirby Dach.
I agree with you. There's always going to be a team when a player is 25 years old, 6'4", 220 pounds, right-handed centerman that was a former first-round draft pick, drafted 3rd overall, who, by the way, is squeaky clean off the ice. You've never heard any bad stories about him. Yep. You're always going to have a team that's going to say, I think I could jumpstart this guy. I think this guy can work out in our system. Or they're always going to have a team that's going to say, this guy's worth a shot. There's no doubt about it. There's
totally
no doubt about it.
Totally agree. Like there's always a team that thinks they're smarter than everyone. And they think, you know what? I think we do have the staff to get this player going. Like, they cannot help themselves. Like, they will think they can resurrect the career of a big right shot centerman.
Do you agree with me, though? He's not a second line centerman.
Oh, of course he's not.
Not on a contending.
Of course
you agree with
not.
me? He's a better winger than he is a centerman.
I you know what? Down the stretch, I kind of liked him as a winger. I think I thought in a perfect world, if he was to stay in Montreal, he'd have been a 3rd line winger. But as I said, when he plays with some FU, he's a fantastic 3rd line winger. He doesn't do it consistently.
Okay, so now how have the Canadiens played since post-trade deadline? They played 7 games since. Montreal Canadiens general manager Kent Hughes was asked about it. Let's hear from the Canadiens GM.
Played, 7 games post-deadline? Like it's been most of the year. I think when we're playing well, we're doing certain things. When we're not, it's probably been mostly defending, right? How we defend leads and just having a little bit of maturity to our game.
You guys have avoided major skates throughout the year. You've been very consistent. What's your confidence level that that Marty and the group will address these things and move on a better team?
Oh, we've seen it already. I think we had in the California trip, we were probably giving up a little bit too much, particularly off the rush, and they went to work on that. And we saw an improvement on it in the games against Toronto and Ottawa. And I didn't see the game last night. A little bit of a fallback, but that's the nature of the beach in terms of coaching. And even with mature teams, there's ups and downs. We've seen, if I think of the more mature, experienced teams like a Colorado or Dallas, they've had periods too. So we expect there's ebbs and flows to the NHL season.
There you have it. Once again, there's some background noise, but it is what it is. Kent Hughes says, my analysis is that obviously there's some things that we need to address. Our defensive zone coverage, the way we defend leads, it's an issue that we've had. What is your level of optimism that you guys can turn it around and can fix it? He says, I've already seen it. For example, coming back from California, we needed to address certain things. We did versus Toronto and Ottawa. We obviously had a setback this weekend. I wasn't able to watch the game last night because, once again, he was flying. But he said even the best teams like Colorado and Dallas, for example, they've had some hiccups in addressing some of these things. And it's all part of the maturation process. Your thoughts?
Well, he's right. Like we've said earlier in the show, history has proven us that Montreal will win tomorrow. Montreal has never lost 3 games in a row. So when they do go through these bad stretches of bad hockey, bad defensive hockey, at some point they do pick it up and they do show some hunger. So he's right about saying that. And he's right about, like, we keep saying that Montreal's the youngest team in the league. And we throw that around as an excuse for every bad stretch. But the thing is, I've seen Colorado have some brutal stretch of hockey at some point during the season as well. Like, it does happen to every team. So he's right on that. But the thing that was not addressed in that answer is that when we're talking about defensive problems, they have not been limited to one bad stretch of hockey, Tony.
Mhm.
They have been going around since the beginning of the rebuild, pretty much. And what's been concerning is that they're worse defensively than they were last year, and they're supposed to be making step forward. And I do understand the team is younger this year. The team no longer has a David Savard. The team no longer has Joel Armia. The team, there's another player I'm missing in there. Is there Armia,
Dvorak.
Savard on
Dvorak.
that PK?
Dvorak.
Dvorak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 3 core pieces of your PK that you lost right away. So they're still trying to fill out those holes, and they haven't yet. That's why I think they're going to be really, really, really aggressive during the offseason. But they did make one big step back this year defensively. And they've compensated by being elite offensively, which translates well in regular season success.
Yeah.
But I'm very doubtful, again, for playoff success.
And I can understand that because of, once again, one of the things that let them down last year was a lack of experience, B, a lack of maybe depth at the composition of the team. Teams usually you want to have 2 offensive lines. You want to have a defensive shutdown line. You want to have an energy line, a checking line, an energy line. I think they can have a defensive line. I think if they put Deno with Evans, and I know it's 2 centers, put Evans at right wing with Anderson, I think you have a shutdown line. I think if you have the Suzuki line and you have the Kapanen line, I think you can have 2 offensive lines. But it's going to be a lot of pressure on Kapanen, an NHL rookie, to actually perform in the playoffs at center. But he's a good player, so we'll see what happens there. Mm-hmm. I don't think they have the ingredients to have an energy line.
Nope.
Maybe
they have Blaine Laval.
They have Blaine Laval. Bolduc throws his weight around every now and then, but he might actually be out of the lineup every now and then. Texier is not that kind of player.
No.
Laine and Veleno are not either. Florian Jacques, I think, is.
Veleno does hit people.
He hits. Yes, he hits. He was one of the leaders of the Canadiens, but is he the prototypical 4th line energy?
No, but he does
guy?
give you energy. Does it give you like a ton of physicality? No, but he does finish his checks, and he does give you energy if you're looking for an energy line.
I'd like to see him back in the lineup at some point here because you know what? Joe Veleno can skate, and he's a better skater than some couple of other Montreal Canadiens. And when they don't have him in their lineup, they're not as fast as they can be.
I agree. I want to see him at some point. And I will say one thing.
Yeah.
The odds of Veleno getting back into the lineup are much greater than Laine's.
So on that note, it's funny you say that because I think we're several to believe that unless there's some kind of injury disaster, that Laine's not getting back in. Yeah. Having said that, their power play was 0 for 7 on the weekend.
On the weekend?
It was 0 for 7 on the weekend with Suzuki and Caulfield and Slavkovsky and Hudson and Demidov. You're playing the 2 most important games where the power play can actually win you a game. Even if you don't put them at 5v5 and you double shift your best forwards and you keep them just for the power play, is it not worth it?
Counterpoint. Habs have no trouble scoring goals right now. Lots of trouble preventing them. Laine does not provide any of what we're saying right now. You're not. I don't even see Martin St. Louis sending him for a shift 5-on-5, and that's nothing against Laine.
I hear you.
They just don't have a spot for him. And who do you take out of the first wave of the power play? By the way, because if he's playing second wave power play, there's no use having him in the lineup, is there?
I hear you.
And
it's
again,
hard
that's
to take out
nothing
someone
against
It's hard to
Laine.
take out someone on the first wave. I get it. Listen, I think he's played once again, and I've said it before, unless there's some kind of injury disaster, I don't think we see him back in a Montreal Canadiens uniform. But just to play devil's advocate, I think the question remains needs to be asked. And look, we're going to bring up some stats, which will show you one of the reasons why he's not in the lineup, right?
Well, okay, yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
so here we go. So ever since he's been with the Canadiens, he's been most used 5-on-5 with Newhook, 420 minutes. Then with Dach, 275 minutes. Evans, 96 minutes. Anderson, 63 minutes. Souvlaki, 58 minutes. Joshua Roy, 53 minutes. So he's not playing with the Caulfields and the Suzuki's, or Demi Dobbs of this world. Most used on the power play, yes, with Suzuki, 153 minutes, 151 with Slafkovsky, 148 with Caulfield, 13 minutes with Dach, 13 minutes with Gallagher, and 12 minutes with Demi Dobbs. But now, here's when he plays with the players, 5v5, what their goals for and goals against are. So when he plays with Newhook, they're a -6 differential. When he plays with Dach, they're a -2. When he plays with Evans, they're a -5. When he plays with Anderson, there's a -1. When he plays with Slafkovsky, it's a -1. And when he plays with Joshua Roy, it's a -2. So his differential is in the negatives, and that's why he doesn't play.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna add to that, Tony. During some of the drills we've seen at Habs practice, they throw him on the blue line at times. They throw him at center. Like, does that indicate to you that they have any intention
No,
of
that
sending
indicates
him? Yeah.
he's not in the plans
Yeah.
whatsoever.
And that sucks for him. I understand. And you know what, Tony? I do think on some other teams in the NHL, they would use Patrik Laine. They would have him in the lineup, but it's just not a fit for Montreal this season. It was last season. It was great last season. He did exactly what they wanted him to do and what they acquired him for. But now he's no longer a fit. And I don't think Martin St. Louis has any time for him, to be honest.
Okay. We've talked about that. The goalies. We talked about the goalies as well. Kent Hughes was asked about it. 3 goalies on the team. What's the plan here down the stretch? Let's hear from the Montreal Canadiens general manager.
J'ai vu quelque part qu'on est 4 points de première place, puis combien de 10e place. Alors j'imagine que le coach va jouer le gardien qui va l'aider à gagner le match.
Est-ce que Sam a encore des chances d'avoir un départ d'ici la fin de la saison?
Ça, c'est des décisions à Martin. Comme je dis, la décision va être quel gardien il croit va nous donner la meilleure chance à gagner chaque match.
We're a couple of points out of the top of the standings in our division. We're a couple of points from being excluded from the playoffs. So I would imagine that the coaching staff will play the goaltender that gives them the best chance to win. Then he was asked, will we see Samuel Montembeault between now and the end of the year? This is up to Marty St. Louis. He's going to play the goalie that gives him the best chance to win.
The fact that it was non-committal regarding Montembeault tells you everything you have to know, Tony. Right?
Yeah, but you know what? If I recall, there was someone earlier in the season, a podcaster. You hear him on the radio every now and then. You see him on television. Italian guy, very good looking, very, very good looking. Brown.
I already he's ripped and he has 6-pack abs as well.
Brown, blackish, curly hair, bluish green eyes, all depending on the kind of sweater that he's wearing. If he's wearing a blue top, his eyes actually look blue. A lot of charisma, a lot of personality. Who said earlier in the season, what's most important is winning games. You got to play the goalie that gives you the best chance to win. So you know what? We're hearing it now when there's 16 games left. But what happened when we were talking about it in late October, early November, that when Dobish had won 4 in a row and they went to Montembeault for 2 straight, and we're like, Why are they doing that? Or at least I was like, why are they doing that? Well, because Montembeault hadn't played in, the last 2 games, and he hadn't played in 8 days or whatever. These things can't come back to bite you. They can. And if the Canadiens, and I think they're going to make the playoffs, and man, do I ever hope they make the playoffs. But if they don't, and they end up being on the outside by a point, they're going to have to look back at a lot of things and their defensive zone coverage and some of their blown leads. And, they're going to have to look at that. They're going to have to look at some of the games where they didn't continue to ride the hot goaltender.
Some games they lost because of goaltending.
No doubt
that's the
about
thing.
it.
And that's why only 2 goalies will be playing probably down the stretch. Because you cannot afford to lose a game before goaltending. So think about the last 2 games they've lost. Well, Dobish, I didn't mind Dobish against San Jose. I think the Ferraro's floater was the one he probably wants to get back.
I did find it odd, though, that he started the game versus the team.
We've talked about this.
That scored 6 on him the week before. And I think you threw out the whole thing of, well, you're giving him a chance to rebound and make amends. I get that. I still don't think I would have done it. Now, do I think that if they put Fowler in versus San Jose and the Dobish in versus Anaheim, that they end up winning those games on the weekend? I don't think so, but it's hypothetical. We'll never know. But I thought that was a little bit curious because Fowler played an amazing game in Ottawa. And the only reason why Dobish didn't play in Ottawa was because it was 2 games in 2 nights. We know that.
Yes.
Okay? Fowler played an amazing game in Ottawa. Why not come back with him? Why give him a chance to cool down? You're playing back-to-back, so you know that both are going to play, and you have one goalie who's coming off an amazing game in his last game, and you have another goalie who gave up 6 versus one of those teams on the weekend. So why don't you just play Fowler anyway? It is what it is. Once again, it's
some are going to
say it's easier to talk later. But I went on the record by saying on Thursday and Friday that I would have played Fowler on Saturday and Dobish on Sunday. But once again, there's a lot of other things they have to clean up in their game.
The point, Tony, is you didn't lose against the Sharks because of Dobish, and you didn't lose against the Ducks because of Fowler. They don't need their goaltending to be especially stellar. They just cannot afford to lose games because of goaltending. That's why Fowler and Dobish are going to have the net for the end of the season. They cannot afford to lose any games because of goaltending. And mind you, the defense has been bad this year. But the Habs have lost games entirely due to goaltending at some point. Let's be honest here.
I'll tell you how Montembeault gets back in, and I'll talk to you about that in probably a minute. Not before I talk to you about Instacustoms, Montreal's highest-rated print shop with a 4.9-star Google rating and over 3,000 reviews. Order today, printed today, pick their ship today. Custom T-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Fast, professional, and done right. Visit Instacustoms.com or stop by their downtown Montreal location today. Also, if you want to get in on the action, the Canadiens host the Boston Bruins, and I invite you all to watch our show tomorrow night, the Habs postgame show with Pierre Maguire and a special guest or two following the hockey game between the Canadiens and the Bruins. I'll be on immediately after the game. If you want in on the action, go all the way with Betway. Get a deposit matchup bonus up to $300 on your first deposit. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. So here's how Montembeault gets in. One of the 2 goalies gets injured. That's one way he gets in. And if one of the 2 goalies gets injured, at that point when they play back-to-back, he'll get in a game, number 1. Number 2, the Canadiens clinch a playoff spot with 2 games or 1 game left in the regular season. At that point, they'll give Montembeault a game. Those are the only 2 scenarios I see him getting in, but sports is so strange. It changes so fast that we'll see what happens. So your prediction is there's a trend. The Canadiens don't lose 3 games in a row. You're expecting a Canadiens win versus the Bruins tomorrow night.
Yep. History tells us that. Gonna listen to history.
they better win that game.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Is that okay? So we're gonna use this cliche a lot until the end of the season. But is that the game of the year?
The next two games, like there's going to be several games of the year between now and the end of the season. So the game versus Detroit, the game versus Boston tomorrow night's the most important game of the year. After that one, when they visit Detroit on Thursday, that'll be the most important game of the year.
Game of the year.
The game versus the Islanders on the weekend, that's going to be a big game. And by the way, on the weekend, I will be live at Cafe Milano. To bring you, of course, the Habs post-game show. I'll watch the game from there. And the post-game show actually should start probably at around, give or take, 9:45 p.m. But I'll Cafe Milano, 3 locations, one on Jarry and St. Leonard, the other one on St. Martin and Laval. I'll be at the one on Brunswick in either DDO or Point Claire. I'm not so sure where they are exactly on the West Island, whether it's actually considered DDO or Point Claire. But anyway, you get my drift. It's on Brunswick Boulevard. And so I'll be there. And so I'd love to see so many of you that are part of the chat, whether it's on YouTube or on Facebook or you comment on Twitter. I'd love to see you at Cafe Milano on Saturday night. We'll watch the game together, and then I'll be on after the game. So, and then there's 2 big home games versus Columbus that are going to be very important. There's a game versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's going to be very important. So there's several big games between now and the end of the year. Nick Cloutier, thanks so much for doing this, my man. Who's
always a pleasure.
Who stands out tomorrow in this predicted Montreal Canadiens win by you?
Hey, tell you what, Demidov didn't get any points last night, but I thought he was amazing. All over the ice. I think he has a huge game tomorrow.
Ivan Demidov is the star, says Nick Cloutier. Who's your starting goaltender?
Tomorrow, I go back with Dobish.
Goes with Dobish. All right. Thank you, Nick. Talk
See
to you
ya.
soon,
Always a pleasure,
right.
Tony.
Thank you, my
All
man.
right.
There you
Appreciate
have it.
you.
I appreciate you. Nicolas Cloutier from TVA Sport. Thank you very much. Special thanks to all of our sponsors. Special thanks to Shane Gaumont and Master Control. If you like the podcast tonight, hit the like button. Hit the hype button as well at the bottom of the video. That gives us a little bit of momentum going forward. And once again, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. And we hope to see you in big numbers tomorrow night, immediately following the Canadiens and the Bruins. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for your support. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love if we can. It's the Sick Podcast. Have a good night. I'm Marinaro. And once again, the podcast was recorded just before the Bruins game was over and just before the Detroit game was over. So we're not going to tell you about the score just now. So keep that in mind. Thank you. Have a good night.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Bittt, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.